Hey folks, this is Jeff Hester from Social Hikers, founder of the Six Pack of Peaks Challenge. And we're going to try something a little bit new tonight. I'm going to be using YouTube Live for a presentation on Wanderlog. I'm just going to talk a little bit about this tool. Uh-oh, what's going on here? I've got some echo. I'm going to talk a little bit about Wanderlog, which is a tool that I discovered as I was planning some big road trips this year. And I thought, this is really cool. And I think it's going to be useful to a lot of the people who are into hiking and backpacking and adventuring, just because one of the natural components of that is a road trip. And I love road trips. I love planning road trips. I love planning big adventures, as you guys know. And so I thought, well, I'll share what I found. I'm not endorsed by them. I'm not getting any kickbacks or anything. I just wanted to share this cool tool that I found and see what we can, share what I've learned from using that a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the features of Wanderlog, and I'm going to go into a demo of it. So I'll actually just show you kind of, how it works and what it's all about. And then I'm going to be monitoring the comments. So if there are any comments or questions that come up, we'll do some live Q&A. And this whole presentation will be recorded, so it'll give you a chance to go back and look at it, or send it on to a friend who might have been unable to join us live. With that, let's dive in. So, what is Wanderlog? It is a website. It is an app, both of those things. So it's an all-in-one trip planning tool. This can work for all kinds of trips. So whether you're traveling internationally, you're flying somewhere, whether you are going solo or you're going in a group, and I'm gonna focus on a couple of the features that I think are really important to me, and I think to most people, and that is the road trip component to it. And I'll talk a little bit about I'm going to focus in the demo on the website and the web interface, but there is mobile access via an app. So if on iOS or Android, there is a Wanderlog app, and all of your information that you have on the website, it also shows up here on the app and it syncs. And you can even have offline access so that you can, when you're out of range of service, you still have access to that information, which is really handy. A few things that it's helpful to do, it helps you to plan your route, where you're going for, in the case of a road trip, where you're going to start, all the different points along the way, where you're going, the route that you're going to take. You can put in there where you're going to stay, what kind of activities you're doing. And I'll share an example from, well, I guess a couple of examples that I've done from trips that I've done with this. It's a really powerful tool. There's some similar tools out there that do very similar things. Obviously, you can do a lot of route planning with things like Google Maps, but it's fairly rudimentary. So this gives you just sort of a nice visual interface. It does oftentimes will suggest things for you, and it even has an AI component if you're interested in that. So we'll do an experiment with that a little bit later and see how that goes. So as you join tonight, if you could drop a comment in the chat and let me know, that you're here, where you're joining from, and if you've planned a road trip or you are planning a road trip sometime this year. Where are you going? That's what I want to hear. All right. Um, Let's see. So one of the things that I like about it is that I mentioned the visual route maps. So there's an opportunity for us to go in and take a look at that. And let me drop into Safari and show that. All right. So here we are looking at the Wanderlog website. You can see it has home, travel guides, hotels, and deals. Mostly I start here and I'm either planning a new trip or I am working on a trip that I've already planned. And some of these trips I've taken, like excuse me, the Mighty Five Loop. We did March 26th to April 16th. There were two of us, Joan and myself. We went to 84 different places over those 3 weeks, and some of them are upcoming, like this trip to Colorado, which I'm doing with some other social hikers. We're going to be camping and hiking the Colorado Six Pack of Peaks Challenge. And so right now it's just Joan and I are in there, but we can add the other participants so that they have the same access to our itinerary. They can look at the itinerary on their phone and know kind of like where we're supposed to be, when we're supposed to be, day by day, and what we're doing when we're hiking which peak and all of that information. It's a good central location for all of that data and planning all of that. And so it makes it easy for you to kind of centralize that information. Let's take a look at one of these as an example. So I'm going to look at the Mighty Five Loop. So this is a trip. We started in Oregon because that's where I live. And so you kind of see where we stopped along the way. And you can see most of the waypoints around the five national parks in Utah. We dipped down into Arizona for a bit, and this is really, really handy just to kind of get a sense of where you are, where you're going. And one of the things that you can do on here is you can say always show route lines. You can choose to turn off certain dates. But if I turn this on, you'll see exactly what our driving route was. And each day is color coded with a different color. So you get a segmentation of that particular day. It's a nice way for us to go into that information. On the left side of this, you can see I have my itinerary down here, so I can drill in and I can see, oh yeah, on Monday the 31st, we're going to Arches National Park. And I can zoom into the Moab area there. And here's Arches, and we're going to Arches. We went there early, so we got there at 6 a.m. We wanted to be there for sunrise. We went to Double Arch Trail, the Delicate Arch Trail, Landscape Arch, and then we went into the town of Moab. And then later that night, we went to Groundview Overpoint, and we stayed at the Wingate Campground in Dead Horse Point. And so all of that information is right there. And if I wanted to change these around and say, well, let's see, I wanted to do Delicate Arch first, I can just drag and drop, grab that handle, and move it around. And a couple things I want to point out here. First, it shows sort of the cumulative total of driving time and distance for the day based on the activities and locations that I have listed. So I see that I've got an hour and 18 minutes of drive time, 42.5 miles, and then all of these different activities. In addition to that, it's going to show me the distance for each segment. So when I go from Two Arches National Park, from where I was camping at the Wingate Campground, I have it's not very far, 10 minutes, a Delicate Arch Trail, 17 minutes, Double Arch Trail, and so on. So you get a sense of where your time is and all of that. I see some comments from people who've joined the live stream. Chris, Harvey, Jeff Sale, thanks for joining tonight. Um, if you have a road trip planned sometime this year, maybe just drop a comment. Let me know where you're headed this year, and maybe we can play around with that a little bit. Um, by default, it's going to pop in some graphics in here. So it puts in a photo for a particular thing, like Landscape Arch. They have this particular photo, but I can hover over that and click change, and it's going to pull up maybe a nicer example of a photo. Maybe this one I like. I can select that, and that'll be used on my itinerary. It mirrors on my app. It mirrors for any of the other people, the collaborators that I have in this trip, so they can see that. If I want to kind of condense this into something more concise, I can use the compact view. and it'll drop out those images. So it just shows me sort of the location and the travel time between each one of those places. You'll note that for any one of these items on the itinerary, I can add notes, links, etc. there. So I can add a time to that. What time do I want to be at Landscape Arch? What is there a cost associated with it? Not so much here, but you can put all of that information in there. In this case, Grand Viewpoint Overlook, our plan it was to cook dinner at sunset in our van. So we were going to be there and just kind of watch the sunset. In addition, it's going to look at that day and kind of where we are, and it's going to suggest other recommended places that I might want to add to my list. And so I could say, oh, yeah, maybe I do want to add the Poison Spider Trail or the Green River Overlook or Whale Rock, etc. Totally optional if you want to do that or not. If I wanted to add that, I could just say, hit the plus sign. It's going to add it to my list. It's going to change, of course, the driving, etc. If I want to take that back out, just hit the trash can and it's gone. I can hide those recommended places. Sometimes it's useful when you're planning the trip and trying to discover things. Sometimes you just need to get it out of the way. And I can go down sort of day by day. I kind of like the picture view, so I'll toggle that back on. Um, let's see. And you can see, just some of the places that we were going, where we're staying, and so forth. Now, one of the other things that's really nice and makes this especially great for sort of collaborating on a group trip. So if you're going with, this trip was myself and Joan. We weren't really splitting expenses; they were just our expenses. But if I were going with a group of people and we wanted to share gas money or um, lodging costs, super easy to do. So basically, when I go down and look at the budget, you can see all of the expenses that we incurred on this trip. That's actually not all of them, but most of the any expenses that we entered in there. And we can view a breakdown, activities, food, lodging, gas was our one of our biggest expenses because in this particular trip, we were camping in our van. So we did have campground fees in places. Some places we were on BLM land and we were just boondocking. But it's a super easy way to go in and do that. And if I want to add an expense, I can just say, oh yeah, we spent $60 for um, gas, and I could say where it was, who paid it. Was it myself or Joan? Are we going to split it or not? You can totally decide how you want to do that. And you could put in a date. So now you have sort of a running total of what the costs were for that. And I really like that kind of functionality because it just gives you a sense. I mean, a lot of times I've done road trips and I kind of lose track. How much did we actually spend on this? And especially for camping, because you think, oh, camping is cheap, but in reality, like this trip, we've spent $1,500 on a camping trip. Now, granted, it was 3 weeks. We did stay at some campgrounds that charge a little bit more, like this KOA in Jerome, or a really nice place in Escalante called Upland that was amazing. That had a really great place to stop. And so, some really cool features for just sort of managing your trip and getting around and all of that information. So let's see. This is an example. Of Land Escalante was the place that we stayed. This was a really cool place, and if I click on this. It actually pops up a little more information. You can see the address, you can see their phone number, their website. We can open it up in TripAdvisor or wherever if we want, and get some more information about that. And then one of the things you can do is if you click change photo, that's useful, is it does give you additional photos from that location. And so you get kind of a sense of what else is there. Like they have some yurts, they have some airstreams you can rent. They have a super nice little lounge area that you can kind of hang out at with fire pits, and it's covered and heated and but open, so it's like a outdoor space. They have a pool and a hot tub. They have an outdoor movie theater. It was just like a really cool thing to be able to do kind of in the at the end of our second week of traveling. So super nice way to be able to just kind of explore that information. A few things that it will do that I haven't really spent a lot of time with is it has, this idea of autofill a day, and they will generate a day of suggested places. Personally, I like to define and select the things that are going to go into my road trip and where I'm going to go and what I'm going to see. Um, but it could be interesting to see. Let's see. A couple of questions that have come up. I'm going to go ahead and pop this open. So, Jeff Sales asking, does this app have a listing of campgrounds? That's a really great question. And so one of the things you can do is you can search within an area. And let's just say um, we've got a couple of trips going on. Let's say we're going to go to I don't know. Well, Chris Griffith is on here. He's doing San Diego to Great Basin National Park. So let's say we go back here and we want to start a new trip, and we're going to go to Great Basin National Park. And the dates are optional. I'm not going to put in dates at this point, so we'll just say, yeah, let's start planning it. Obviously, we can invite friends. I'm going to do that later. We can do that at any time. It's going to say, oh, you can just add some places into one of the fields at the left. And that's a great way to add, what you might want to see. Um, Wheeler Peak, which is the state high point of Nevada, is in Great Basin. So kind of cool. Um, so I can explore and I can see a couple of things that pop up are um, guides that other users have created. So you can see Alexandria's Civil Rights Chronicles is a popular guide. Alan Watts' Southwestern USA Road Trip is a popular guide. And then there's the option to search for hotels and that sort of thing. And we can explore that. Um, I may or may not want to do that kind of information, but I could go ahead and I could do a search. So let's say I wanted to search for a campground or yeah, let's say campgrounds on the map, and it's going to start popping up, Kingston Campground, Pine Creek Campground, Timber Creek Campground, and so on. So to answer Jeff's question, it does. It's not perfect and it's not exhaustive, so it's not necessarily showing every possible campground that's out there. It's going to show you sort of some of the maybe the bigger or better known ones, and as we zoom in, we've got more and more campgrounds that are out there. And then, of course, most of them will also have a link. So if I go to Snake Creek Primitive Campgrounds, I can click on that link and it's going to open up the website and tell me a little bit about it. So I can, in this case, it's a National Park Service website. Um, so I would say I don't use this exclusively for campsites. Some things may or may not show up. Some of them you might hear of from somebody else. So, Upland Escalante is a place that I had found, I had heard about from my daughter who lives in Utah and Salt Lake City. And so, I just went in and looked it up. So I said Upland, and sure enough, it pops up. And there it is. It's not anywhere near where we were looking, so we'll take that off there. But and you can also look at sort of recommended places. So, oh yeah, Lehman Caves might be a recommended place for this particular trip, and we could explore that and see kind of what's in there. Um, One of the things that it's not particularly good at out of the gates is that you notice this trip was to Great Basin National Park, but didn't say from where I'm starting. So one of the things that I do is I start by adding on my itinerary. So I could add a date and I could say, oh, I'm going to start on June 3rd. And I don't know when it's going to go to. We'll just say this is going to be about, we'll go to the 15th. All right. So on Tuesday, I'm going to start in Bend, Oregon. And now I can start looking at this and I can figure out, all right, I'm going to go for start in Bend, Oregon, and I'm heading to by I don't know Thursday. I want to be in uh, Great Basin National Park. All right. So what do we have here? There's my first point in Bend. There's my second point. I can go in there and say, let's optimize the route, automatically get the fastest route. It wants me to add between 3 and 50 places for that to work. So it's not going to be able to do that yet. But I could also go in and say, let's autofill this day. Let's go in here and autofill day. I'm going there. We're going to generate an itinerary for you. It's going to remove any existing places. I don't really have anyone. Yep, didn't have any places with that location. Like I said, I am not a fan of using the AI component for this at this point, but that is something that they have available, and you can tap into it. Your mileage may vary. A couple things that I'll point out that can be a little bit of a thorn in its side. It does want you to try to book hotels, and it will look at every day on your itinerary and say, "Oh, by the way, you don't have any lodging yet for these dates. Do you want to book hotels?" And of course, you know, um, they're going to try to make it easy for you to do it, and they're going to get, perhaps some kind of commission off of that. I would imagine. I haven't used that yet. Don't have a real need for it, and you can just close that and let that'll go away. And of course, you can once if you've booked things elsewhere, you can come in and add those at any point in time. Or if you've reserved a campground, you can add that to it at any time. You can upload documents that go with it. You can add, what I've done on our Colorado trip. So the upcoming Colorado trip I've got. Um, and this is something that I've asked them about. I started this itinerary looking at it from my personal needs, which I'm going to be driving out to the Denver area and starting in Bend, and we're going to be stopping in Boise and stopping in Salt Lake and stopping in Grand Junction and so forth. I'm actually going with a group of people. There'll be 8 of us all told, and I want to give all 8 people access to this trip that I've created, but they don't I don't necessarily want them to see, or they don't need to see the noise of my travel and where I'm staying day by day outside of the trip that we're doing, which is just this portion of it. And so I asked if it's possible to split an existing trip, and so I can, or either that, or to make it to share certain days. So, for example, I could deselect, some of the days that um, aren't relevant to our group as such. And I can say, always show route lines. Here's the part that actually applies to my group. So, and actually not even this, because this is kind of on our way out. We're going to be stopping in Breckenridge. Our first campground is Chief Hosa Campground in just outside of um, well, pretty close to Evergreen, Colorado, which is about 30 minutes west of Denver. And One interesting thing about Chief Hosted Campground is that it is the first motor campground in the country. So it was started way back in the early 1900s, and it's going to be kind of cool. We're just spending one night there. It's not a big deal. It's a place to lay our head while we get ready for our next component, which is Bergen Peak. That's our first peak in the Colorado Six Pack of Peaks Challenge. Um, so in this case, I had done some research ahead of time. Didn't have this tool yet, so I had been already searching. And some of the reservations that I made were kind of based on the campgrounds that I was able to find. We needed enough space. We needed to reserve two spaces where possible next to each other because we'll have eight people and we'll have one, two, three, four vehicles and a motorcycle. So we have to fit all that into two spaces. We need to be able to accommodate a van, a car and a trailer, and another car, and one motorcycle. So most of those were already booked in advance. But, I can go in and on these, I can attach the cost and all of the information that goes with that, and you can see some of the things that we have kind of planned along the way. Like we're going to Elk Meadow Park, and this will make it easy for people who are also on the trip. Oh, how do I get there? I can look up the driving directions for that particular day. And on the app, this is super obvious. So basically, you can click on that and it'll open up and it gives you the choice. Do you want to open it up in Apple Maps or Google Maps? So, whatever is your preference, it's going to pop it open based on your current location and where you want to, the item on the itinerary that you want to go visit. It's going to show you those directions and how long it's going to take to get there. So pretty cool that it will do that for you. And this is kind of how we've broken it down. So we've got our day one, our day two, where we're going. We're doing the Manitou Incline. We're actually going to continue onward from there, do sort of an exploratory hike of sorts up to Rocky Rocky Mountain, would you believe? And of course, lunch afterwards at a local craft brewing company. So we'll be hitting up some of those as well. And that's the great thing about this is that we can go in and kind of pull these things together day by day and see where the trip is going, where we're planning to go. You can see I can have multiple stops along the way. I can see the total mileage for that particular day and the minutes of drive time. So I'm kind of aware of how much time we're spending driving on the road. There's a few cases here. We have built into this particular itinerary, we are hiking for 2 consecutive days, and then on the third day, we rest. So we give our legs a break. We might still actually be active, going out and visiting things like Garden of the Gods or Manitou Cliff Dwellings or something. But then we continue onward to our next campground. So we know kind of how much time it's going to take and what time we have to be on the road. Um, and this is the thing that I love about this particular tool is that it's going to give me all of that information. It's going to show me, where I'm going to be going from where we're camping, White Star Campground, to Mount Sherman, and what that looks like. What does that route look like? What are the things that we want to stop and see or do in a particular location? We can find some of that information as well. All right. So looking here at some of the comments, I saw uh, Chris has got a couple of road trips planned, some big ones. Wow, you're going to put on some mileage on there. And Jeff, all right, you're going to Devil's Tower. I've never been there. That's in one of the Dakotas, right? And well, Harvey's doing a couple of state high pointing road trips, hitting the high points of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. I've done that one. Mount Sunflower. Um, Nebraska. And then another one hitting Wheeler's Peak, New Mexico. All right. And Mount Elbert. Excellent. So you'll have to let me know, Harvey, if you're going to be out there in July, because we can maybe coordinate and share. You can hike with us. That'd be awesome. So we're actually doing Mount Elbert on Friday, the 25th of July. And we're going to be going from the Cloud Trailhead. At least that's the plan right now. We'll see. It's very close to where we're camped. It's only about 4 or 5 miles away. So actually 5.3 miles according to Wanderlog. And so it's kind of a nice, easy one for us to get to and hobble back to our campground afterwards. If we want to go into Leadville for another late lunch or early dinner, we can do that as well. And it's just kind of a nice way for us to be able to see this. Now, the Wanderlog is a free website and a free application. However, there are some additional features that are only available with the pro version. So there is a pro level that I actually sprung for. And one of the things that it does is it allows you to export this with all of the waypoints to Google Maps. So I can export. Oh, okay. So open in Google Maps and it'll view my saved places as markers on a map. If I want to see the whole thing with my notes, my reservations, and places on a map, then I have to use the app, and I can do it that way. Um, but yeah, I started with the free version. I played around with it, and I thought this is good enough that I want to, and I have enough trips planned that I want to kind of take advantage of that and get more about this. You can see here, I can very easily zoom into a particular day. If I want to zoom in to Friday, here's that Friday segment going all the way down to Manitou Springs and where we'll be camping up here at Thunder Ridge and so forth. All right. Any other questions about Wanderlog? Drop a comment in the chat, and I will happily take a look at those. I'm not an expert on this. I haven't used every feature as you saw with the AI stuff. I haven't played around with that too much. Mainly because I have some very specific things that I want to see and do. Um, so, I think it's still sort of in the experimental phase to use like AI to plan your trip from here to there and tell you where you're going to go and what you're going to stop to eat and where you're going to stay. I, to me, I like to have a little bit more of a say in that. And of course, once it does that, you can always modify it and delete and add or rearrange things to your own liking. So just something to kind of be aware of. And all right. So a couple things. Let's see. This is the first time that I've done this on YouTube Live, doing the live stream through that platform. So give me a little feedback on how that worked for you or not, and whether, that's the place to do it or if we should do something else. The other options for me would be like Google Meet. The problem with that is that it's sometimes cumbersome to try to manage multiple people and whose screen takes precedence and all of that. So this is better for this kind of presentation, I think. Um, Facebook Live we did last week for another presentation. I think that works fairly well, but it limits you to people who are on Facebook. And I know that these days there's a lot of people who are kind of like, you know, down on Facebook and don't want to do that. Um, so I'd love to get some feedback from you. Just let me know what you think, how this worked. Did it work well for this kind of session? and what you would do, what you'd love to see different, if that's possible. Uh, let's see. I want to add this to here. Jeff Sale. So a specific place can be added if it isn't suggested in the app. Yeah, absolutely. So if we were to dive in here, I don't know. Let me take a look here. Obviously it's pulling a lot of the map data from, in this case, Google. So it already has named places from Google. And if we dive in, and get really, really, detailed on here, you can start to see some of the restaurants and other things pop up. And basically, it's pulling that from Google Maps. Can you add a place that's not on here? Um, Let me just try and see. Let's see. Trailhead. Yeah, so there's a place I happen to know that it exists. It's called the Trailhead. It's right there in Buena Vista. It's a really cool hiking outdoor gear shop, and we'll probably stop there at some point, actually. But let's see if there's a plot, if there's something on here that doesn't exist. What might that be? Let's just say, oh gosh. Let's say we wanted to go to something around here. So I can add a place. Um, so you can add places from anywhere on the web with their Chrome extension, free 7-day trial. Don't know what that's about. I guess that might be part of the pro capability. So yeah, a lot of the data that's in there, part of it is from Google Maps for sure. But the other information that's in there, so if we see, well, like you see on here, it's got a rating of 4.6 from Google. Probably the location, the phone number in this is also probably from Google. And we could look at that if we pop into Google Maps. Yeah, so White Star Campground, we can see, the location, the phone number, the website, etc. A lot of it's right there. All right. So another tool that I use that is not included in here. So here, this might be a good example. Um, iOverlander is a tool that I use for finding boondocking sites or, like, for example, sanitation dump stations. If you needed to do that, or if you needed to find, potable water that you can refill, it's going to find all of those locations. And if I click on that, that kind of information may or may not be in Google Maps. So let's just take a look here. C dot RV station, water spigot, um, parachute dog park. It's 25 feet from the edge of the curb. And if I click on more details, it's going to give you a lot of times photos to show you the spigot, kind of where it is, and people's reports on that. So iOverlander is a great tool for this kind of thing, and also useful for looking up things like campgrounds or other things. So I can go in and say I want to find a uh, wild camping or informal camping, and now I'm getting all kinds of stuff out here. So if I take a look here, rest area, East Anvil Point. Okay. Good flat protected spot, a few trees, room for a few campers. So this is just, public land that you can do wild camping at, and you can see some sort of self-contained spots. And actually, they can't even verify if this is truly wild camp, if it's allowed or not. So you have to check that. But this is not going to be on Google Maps. And so some of the times we were staying at a place that wasn't necessarily on Google Maps, and we were able to add that within Wanderlog. So it is possible to do that. I don't think this becomes the one tool that is going to do everything for you, but I think it does enough good things to make it really handy for multi-day road trips. I'm going to add that this also will accommodate other kinds of trips. I mentioned this, I touched on this briefly at the beginning, and that is, I could be flying to Boston and doing, visiting something or doing some things in Boston or traveling, to the next state, going up to Maine. Um, and this will accommodate that. So you can put in your flight information and the hotels that you're staying and all of that information as well. You don't have to book things through here. That's totally up to you. And it gives you a lot of flexibility in that regard. If I don't want the sidebar, I can hide that, and it's going to just kind of bring it down to the dates of each trip. You'll see that I've got some notes on there. So for Friday, July 18th, it says Bergen Peak. When I click on that, that's because I actually gave this date a heading, and you can edit that to something else if you so choose. Just to kind of give a point of reference for the people on the trip. Um, oh yeah, here's an example, where I've got a Thunder Ridge campground, and I had put in what our cost was for that. So I added our cost for that particular campground. I put in the notes. I put in what sites we have. Sites 4 and 5. We're there for 2 nights. Um, And I could add the time. I'm not going to be that specific in this particular case, but that's an option for you to add. And that becomes useful. Like if you want to check to see, one of the things that was kind of useful for this is that there were a couple places where I had a brewery on here. So like, I don't know. Um, on Sunday or something, we were going to go visit a brewery, or Monday we were going to visit a brewery, and it turns out that it's closed on Mondays, and this told me that. So that's kind of a useful thing to have, and I was able to take that off or move it to another date. So pretty useful in that regard. What else can I show you about this? Let's see. Um, oh, they do have guides. And I haven't used the guides a lot. When I did our Mighty Five trip, there were some guides out there, so I kind of took a look at a few. And these are guides that have been, they're not specific for dates or anything like that, but they're curated by somebody, a traveler who has some expertise or some knowledge of that particular area. And so you could go into, oh, I don't know, Moab, let's say. Moab, top places to visit. And you'll see, oh, this one's by the Wanderlog staff. So they've hired somebody to put this, or they've pulled together some information. And you can see the places on here that they've sort of highlighted in their guide, and a little bit of information about each one. So, like, oh, they suggest Arches, Moab Brewery, the Moab Food Truck Park, which I actually did visit and was really, really cool. Um, and then some things you want to do. So you could take that as a way to discover some things that you might not know about. And then if you wanted to add this or save this, you can simply hit save, and you can either add it to one of your existing trips. So I could add it to the Mighty Five loop on a particular date, and it's done. So kind of a nice way for you to kind of get some of that information. You can also create your own guides. So if you wanted to create a guide and publish it and share it for other people, you can do that. So you can say, "Oh, I want to create a guide for Bend, Oregon," and boom, start writing. Talk a little bit about Bend, Oregon, and they give you some prompts for what to put in there, general tips, and places to visit and things to do, and we could put all that together. And I might do that at some point just for fun to see how that works. Um, AI assistant. we touched on this a little bit earlier. I didn't have great success with that. I personally don't kind of love that idea, but I could say, oh, give me a 3-day itinerary to Bend. See what it comes up with. Um, all right, morning, day one, breakfast at the Breakfast Club. Never been there, and I think they're closing, as a matter of fact. Explore downtown Bend, lunch at Deschutes Brewery. I would recommend that. Walk along Drake Park and the Deschutes River. Also recommend that. Dinner at 900 Wall, just closed last week, unfortunately. Um, and you can see it's finished creating it, and now it's telling me a little bit about, giving me some tips. We can add it to our trip. Okay, got it. So I can go in here, and for any one of these, if I say, oh yeah, I want to check out the Bendale Trail, there it is. I can say add to trip and pick where that's going to go. In this case, I could say, well, places to visit. And you can choose kind of what goes into that. So I think that's kind of interesting just to get, if you have nowhere to start and you have no ideas, that might be an interesting way to do that. Um, I think that there's lots of other resources to help you do research, and of course, people to ask who might be from that area. But this is a place where you can start. So the guides that are out there can be quite useful. They have this traveler map that shows kind of places you've been. I don't know where that actually fits in yet, so I can't really say much about that. Um, and what else can we show? I think that's about all that I want to see go through tonight. Is just kind of a high level overview of this tool. Now, just to give sort of a perspective of some of the things that are different. I've also used a tool called Road Trippers, and Road Trippers is also quite useful, and it does similar things as far as suggesting. So if you're going to go from Bend to Denver, Colorado, and you're going to drive, it's going to help break it up, and you can decide. It'll actually show you things along the route that might be of interest to you. So if you're interested in the outdoors or if you're interested in breweries, it would show you items along that route that you might stop at. I kind of like Wanderlog a little bit better. I think there's a lot of overlap between those tools, but I really liked the way this works. I think it's kind of a cool way to plan your road trips, and especially if you've got other people that you're going to be traveling with and you need to share that information. All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you all for joining me. I don't have any sort of like handout or anything to email you. This is recorded, so it'll be up on our YouTube channel. If you want to check back at it later or point somebody to it, much appreciated. If you can subscribe to our channel, also appreciate that. And we'll see you at the next Trail Mix Tuesday. I'm not sure when that's going to be yet, but you can check the calendar. One last thing before I go. Talking about adventures, I've got a few big adventures that we're doing with social hikers. I just want to pull that up and share it with you. Um, we have a trip from December 10th to the 17th in Patagonia. This is in Argentinian Patagonia. We'll be using Al Chalten as our base camp for most of that time. This is the same itinerary, same trip that we did. Took a group down there last year in March at the end of summer. This time we're going at the beginning of summer, the end of spring. And it's going to be awesome. It's just the thing that's nice about this particular trip, or one of the things that's nice about this trip, is that you have some epic hiking every day, epic adventures every day. But at the end of the day, you're at a four-star hotel with a hot tub and a shower and nice beds and rooms, and there's great food in El Chalten, and it's a great way to experience these really amazing places with some comfort is along the way. So I really enjoyed that component of it. um, we do some big hikes. There's two all-day hikes where you will bring a packed lunch and we'll be gone for until dinner time, really. There are there's a few other shorter hikes like 5, 6 mile distance and a 10-mile hike, which goes, not quite all day, but a little bit longer. And then there's a couple optional things that I think are really worth doing. One was a Via Ferrata, which was an absolute blast. And the other is a glacial trek on the Petito Moreno Glacier, which was also really fun to do and just amazing. Everybody gets a chance to see this, whether you do the trek or not. You're right up close to the glacier, but to actually hike up, strap on crampons and hike up into the glacier was really, really cool. We have four more early bird spaces available for this, so you save $200 on the registration, and it's a highly recommended trip. Highly look forward to doing that. Next January, the 17th through the 25th, I'm going to climb Kilimanjaro. This has been on my bucket list for a long time. It's one of the seven summits, the highest point on the continent of Africa. And we're going to be taking a group to do Kilimanjaro. This one, we've already sold out all of the early bird spots, but we have plenty of space left. And so if Kilimanjaro has been something that you've thought about doing at some point, it's not too late to, you know, make a commitment and join me. We're going to be doing it with everybody who's on this trip so far is somebody who's done the six pack of peaks or a personal friend, people who are going along on this trip. So really excited about climbing Kilimanjaro and doing it with a bunch of like-minded people, other social hikers and six pack of peakers. So we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going up a 7-day route on the Machame route, and this is basically allows a lot of acclimatization. So the big component on this, the big variable is the altitude, how high we'll be. And it does make a difference. It does affect people. They will be checking our blood oxygen level twice a day. We'll be, you know, well supported by a professional local team. And it's going to be an amazing climb for sure. And then following that, at the end of January, we have a trip to South Africa. And this is sort of a multi-sport adventure. So there's hikes, there is snorkeling, there's the option to actually get in a shark cage and dive or snorkel with great white sharks. I don't know if that's your thing. But the big thing on this is we're going to do two with an optional third safaris. So we'll actually get a chance both at sunrise and sunset to see the big five animals and some of the lesser five, so that we could be able to see like lions and elephants and giraffes and just hippopotamuses and all of those things. So really excited about that. Again, this is also staying in four-star accommodations along the way. So it's more of a elevated adventure, I guess, is the way that I'm looking at it. And I think the price kind of reflects that. So just to be aware of. But three options right now. In addition, I mentioned that we're going to Colorado, and we have a group that's doing the Colorado six pack of peaks. We're camping. That's full for our group camping trip. However, we're inviting folks to join us for any of the day hikes. So if you're going to be in the area or you'd like to join us on any of these, um, feel free to check them out. We've got the dates on there and a little bit more information. All right. So that was my quick overview of Wanderlog. Hopefully, this is something that's piqued your interest. You think it's kind of interesting and maybe potentially useful. Um, I don't see any other questions, so we're going to wrap this thing up. Basically, it's a great tool for road tripping. That's how I've used it. I will probably use it for some other kinds of uses just to kind of see how it fits, but I think you might find it useful as well. And particularly valuable because of the app integration. So being able to see all that information and update and edit that information on my mobile device is super helpful. All right, folks. Thanks for joining me for Trail Mix Tuesday, and I'll see you next time. Have a great evening.